Hi, in this video I will show you how to put together the 3D birthday cake, which is an SVG file from Simply Crafty SVGs. So here are the pieces, and here's an example. So here's one where you have a Make-A-Wish cutout on the top with 3 little 3D candles, and then the lid comes off. It's a little bit of a trick sometimes to get it back on with the swirly, the little dripping frosting edges. And then you can see how I did the Make-A-Wish underneath the little droppings. So, I didn't really show you that right there. So this is just optional. I just have a happy birthday and a Make-A-Wish that can be put on the side. On this one that I'm showing you, I'm not going to be using it. But I'm going to show you how you can change it up. And this is actually a good cut for vinyl. I did it with cardstock. So this is American Crafts cardstock. Well, actually, the purple is close to my heart. So I know I just happen to have some of that. So it's very similar to American Crafts, but maybe most machines should be able to cut it. But vinyl's definitely a better way to go for a little bit more intricate things like this, if you want to use it at all. But I think I'm going to use the Happy Birthday, but I'm going to actually modify it a little bit. So I'll show you when I get to that part. And this is the lid pieces and the bottom piece. So you could always switch it up too and change the colors up. Now in the file, this and this is the bottom of the actual cake. They would be the same color, but since I printed this out, it didn't really matter what the bottom's going to be, what color it's going to be, so I just chose white. And because it's going to go on that little scallop circle. And then these are I already put one together, but there's three of these candles. So we have 2 that'll lean kind of outwards, like this. So you see they kind of lean. So the 2 sides lean, or you can do obviously however you want. And then the middle is straight. So I already put one of the leaning ones together. Here's the other leaning one, and here's the straight one. So here's the other part of the candle. You have the flame. So there'll be 3 sets just like that, and 3 of these. And we're gonna do this. So I'm gonna do one. I've already done 2 of them. So if you can see, oops, it's not, there we go. And how it's glued to the back of that, and that'll go on top of the candle. They're all the same size on top. So when you put this together, as I already did with the others, you want to go ahead and put these little panels on first. It'll make it easier while it's flat. You need to put them together first. So these are going to go back to back. So we're going to flip this one over, and then we're going to glue it like that, so it's double-sided. So when we put glue here, we want to go down to this little score. There's a little score right there that's cut. I had it just cut it so nobody had to go and prep anything if they had a machine that needed to prep score lines, like Cricut. It's just so we can attach it to the top of the panel on top of the candle. So now this is going to fold backward right there. You can see how that goes like that. Kind of blurry. There we go. So we're going to put them together. Slide it through. add glue to both sides here. Then we're going to fold it back. So we're going to kind of push this down to meet where the cut score is, and then just do that. You just want to hold it in place until it's glued. So there you go, there's the top of the candle. So let me show you how every single one does this. So if you fold it on the score lines, and just make sure I kind of pre-fold it before I do this. So we're going to go ahead and pull this flat. So just fold over so the tab's right down here. And then I'm going to add glue to this tab. And then the other side will fold right over and should line up. I mean, if you have to adjust it a little bit so this edge lines up to the tab fold. But it should line right up, and that'll happen with all three of them, regardless of how the slant or anything. So just go ahead and apply pressure. And then I would do the top first, because that's the one that's going to be least forgiving, that you'll be able to see if it doesn't glue well. So we're going to fold all those tabs down. And we're going to go ahead and make sure you get the glue close to the edge, and don't push the tabs down too much because we kind of need them to adhere towards the top. So we're going to go ahead and fold it over gently and line up the edges. So just kind of go around, make sure they line up, and kind of squish it to line up the sides. And then for this side, because I'll just I can get in, I'll just flip it over. I'm going to just take my wooden chopstick, the blunt end, and just push down on the tabs. Now we won't be able to do that for the bottom part, so we just kind of have to do our best, but the bottom is smaller than the large, so we just want to get that top. And the edges, any kind of imperfection on the top is going to be more noticeable. Like there's a little bit right there, but not enough. And then we go ahead and do the same on the bottom, but the difference is we can't apply pressure from within, obviously. So what we're going to have to do is just gently place it down, make sure these are slightly up and not pushed down so they can kind of adhere. So I'm just going to fold it over gently. I'm not pushing really hard, I'm just moving the sides to get the edges matched up. Then just apply a little pressure, and then once you know it's in place, you can go ahead and just flip it and just lightly rub it. And then once that's done, you can go ahead and just add one of the tops. So it may not match up, but this one kind of matched up. See the yellow to the yellow? So that was kind of cool. So just know that whatever it's facing, this will be the front or back. Depends on what you want it to be. So I'm just going to add a little glue here. You could do it on the bottom of the other panel too, but I'm just going to lightly go around the edges. Very light. And then place it. Just matching up those edges. Oops, pulled it up. And then I just kind of rub the top. So you could do, I just thought it would be fun to have kind of a striped, I did it on the first box I did, that pink one I showed you earlier. But this one I wanted to go with the rainbow theme, so just make sure you rub it long enough to get that adhered, and then we'll put it aside. It'll be nice and dry by the time that we get to the point where we're going to glue it onto the top. So there's really no difference here with this one. It's the top is the same exact size as the the non-slanted candle that we just did. So we'll go ahead and you can see I'm doing the same thing. Just kind of matching up the edges here as I close it down. And then rub around the edges where the tabs are. The only difference with the slanted is that it's slanted, so you'll do the same thing. Here, let me just add a little bit of pressure inside here to those tabs. But the slanted is just slanted, so that's the only difference. It glues exactly the same as the other one. So we'll close this up and then we'll finish up adding the tops to the two slanted candles. As you see, I already have that one done. I'm just going to add the top piece to it. So when you put the top on for these slanted candles, as you know, one candle is going to slant down to the left, like that. And one candle is going to slant to the right. So let me get this in the middle here. So with that said, you want to have this front coming towards the front of the cake where it's slanted. So regardless of how you put it, just be aware of where you place this top panel, because it can make a difference. Otherwise it won't be facing toward the front. But if that doesn't make a difference to you, that's up to you. You could always angle it a little bit too if you want it like one off, something like that. So when we put this top on, I'm just going to go like this. That's going to angle like that, and you can't see it, but it's going to angle like that. So I can see that this is the way I want to put it on, so from the back you'll be able to see the other side as well. So when you glue that on, just make sure that's what you do. So you can see we have the little completed candles here, and I added little glitter glue stickles in the middle of it just for accent on both sides, and it's going to be drying, so we're going to go put that aside. So what's good about doing that first is just so they can get good and dry and stronger. So as I mentioned at the beginning, normally this would be the same color, so it'll be cut out the same color, but because I printed this paper out, I decided just to do a white bottom, so it really doesn't matter what the bottom of the cake is, what color, because you're going to attach it to the little scallop circle. So anyways, so the one thing we want to do, so we're going to just put that up there for now. We want to curl this, so you could do this on the edge of the tabletop, or you could do it like this, and this is just going to help us glue it together and get the curve, a predetermined curve. So one of these pieces is longer than the other. One has tabs, essentially tabs, but because we want it to be round, we don't want to fold those tabs, so there's little cut marks. So if you can see here, there's little cut marks, and those are to guide us in just lining this up. So you don't actually want to fold it. We want to just line this. That's a guide for us to line this edge up when we glue it together. So again, this one has two tabs. Because of the color that I printed, you can kind of see that, but you can see the tab here. And so the tab starts right here, and you can see the cut marks. There's two little cut marks, and that's where you're going to line it up. So once you get it somewhat curled, like I said, you could do this on the edge of a table, but I can't show you very well if that's the case. So we're going to go ahead and glue these two pieces together. So I'm adding glue to the right of the two cut lines. I'm not getting too close because I don't want it to kind of leak through, but now I can see it really well. So you just have to look for it when you're doing it. some colors are harder than others. So I'm just lining this edge up. Yeah, with the pattern paper you do get a seam, but I just like the rainbow theme, so I went with it. The first one I did was pink, as I showed earlier. So I didn't quite get it lined up at the top, but that's okay. So this one I'll have to kind of hold up and do, because you really can't put this flat since it's circular. You can do it a little bit. I'll show you kind of a little trick without bending it. So once you determine where that is, you can kind of curl it over, get it lined up. Oops. I'm not lining this up very well, am I? Okay, good enough. And then you can do that. So you're not really folding anything. You have those two curls on both sides. So you're maintaining the circular feel. So obviously the seams will be the side, or that's what I'm going to make it, because we don't want to see those. So you got kind of a circular there. And then we're going to go ahead, I'm just pre-folding these. So you want to get a pretty good fold. I mean, there's lots of them. In order to make it circular, we wanted to make sure there's lots of tabs. So what we're going to do is add one of these on the inside. So we're just going to glue it on the inside, just go in there like this, and then the other one will go like this. And you notice I wrote cake on it because the lid's bigger, so because I used white, I wanted to differentiate. So no, you can do that. You can write it. I just wrote it with pencil on the place that's not going to be seen on the next non-textured side. So the way that I do this is I just glue a little of them first. So you can do about, it depends on how fast your glue dries, but I'm going to do like half of them. So I'm just adding glue on the tabs inside. And I pretty much can get to the half of it, knowing that I'm not going to, it's not going to dry on me with art glitter glue. So I know I'm looking at that seam right inside there. So I'm kind of flipping it around. So it's this half right here. So I'm pushing it down so the edge meets the inside fold of the tab. And then since I did seam to seam, I know where it stops. Then you can flip it over, and it looks like I had to remember where this I didn't put glue on. There we go. So you see I did half of them. So the other half, I'll just flip them up, add glue, and flip them back down. So actually putting that bottom piece on is optional, but if you want to use it without the, if you're going to use the scallop circle, you don't really need it, because all that'll be hidden once you glue it to the bottom. But if you're going to do it without the scallop circle, then you want to add that. So I'm just including it. So you could do it by hand, each one like that, or we're going to do it the easier way, which is flip it down and then just go around the edge. And then we'll make sure that everything's glued. And again, if you glue it to this, you could just glue it directly on it. So just center it. But I'm going to add it anyways, just to show you the technique. that I use, which is not a big technique at all, but just add glue to the edge here. Get as close to the edge as possible. I'm being really careful because this is printed, and so when the ink gets wet sometimes with inkjets, it can bleed a little bit, and I just don't want it bleeding on the bottom edge. But if it does, then I'll just ink it. So that's the nice thing about inking. So I'm just making sure that it's around the edge. I'm just feeling with my fingertips here. And then we'll go ahead and flip it over. And the biggest thing when you're doing panels like this is to get around the edges. So I'm just going with my fingers, as you can see I'm going around the edge, because I want to get that as close as possible so there's not a big gap. I mean, you can get the middle too, but which of course you want to get the middle. But what's going to be most noticeable are the edges. And if it bleeds a little glue, which this just did, you can just wipe it up. So make sure you have a little wet paper towel handy so you can get excess glue off your fingertips or something like that. But you can see if you don't go all the way to the edge, you'll have gaps like that. And so one of the things you can do is if you have I'm just getting a piece of paper here, but you can use a fine tip applicator if you can't get it in because it's so thin, because there's a little gap right there. I'm just going to put a little glue on this piece of paper. I'm going to slide it in. I'm just getting glue around the edge there, and then I'll apply more pressure. So it's just a little thing you can try. And if you have any kind of inconsistencies down there, that's why I like inking. So I'm just using black right now because that's what I've been using. I use it on the candles too. It's not really going to be that noticeable. Like I said, if it's not a standalone and you use that bottom scallop circle, then it won't be noticeable at all. So you can see, kind of getting it more circular. Now we have these are optional. You could do it in different colors. I did have it all the same color as the top, but if you wanted a different color, you could always use your software and change the color. But this just goes, I like to go from seam to seam. So that just goes like this. So let's go ahead and add these as it rolls away. You can just put a little glue at one end to start it. And of course this is optional, you don't have to use this at all. But when I put it on, I'm going to get as close to that bottom edge as possible. Let's see how much glue I put in. I did about halfway almost. And then I'll just go ahead and add the rest of it, the glue. You don't have to put a lot, just enough to get it. Just be careful, don't want to put too much because we don't want it leaking. Especially the one thing you don't want glue leaking on is inkjet printed paper. That's for sure. It'll make it bleed. So that's that, and then the second one goes on fairly simply, same way. So you'll see it goes around. We can start it here. It'll overlap on one side just a little bit, or actually that one went right to it. I had one, it just overlapped just a little bit. So I'm going to add glue to this whole thing this time. if you do this, one thing I want you to be aware of is the glue's on this thing. So if it flaps and hits the side, you've got glue on the side. So just keep it up until you are ready to put it down. So I'm just going to go from that seam again, and then just carefully wrap it up. And I'm just trying to make sure it's lined up to that bottom edge. And I'm getting a little glue on my fingertips, just being careful not to and this is just a matter, I didn't stretch it quite enough, but you can see that it depends on the thickness of your paper, but we got there. So we're just keeping the seams on the side still. So there we go. So essentially that's kind of done, but you could do this. I wouldn't put it on until last anyways, but I'm not going to use this because of course you can't see this over this color. But you could put the Make-A-Wish or Happy Birthday on the front. You just want to make sure the lid, the placement's in the right place based on the little drips that come down. So let's do that lid and then I'll show you what to look for. Okay, so now to the lid, so we're almost done. So I had already curled this a little bit, just like the actual cake. So just curl it because it's going to be circular. And the same thing, you have little, these are a little bit more noticeable, but there's a little cut line. You don't want to fold it on both sides on those tabs. We're just going to line these edges up. And I also already scored these, or folded the tabs on the score lines. So if you have one of these, I usually keep a pin nearby just in case it gets a little clogged. So it got a little clogged. Try to cover it when I'm not using it. So this is really identical to how the cake's put together, except it's much easier to line it up because it's shorter. I say that and then I moved it. Then like we did with the cake, I'm just going to add glue to that other non-folded tab. And just lining it up, the edge up to that cut line. And this one's easy just to do this. I mean, you can put it on the table too, but not that necessary. So it's going to be the same way that we attach the lid, where we're going to put one inside and then one outside. So same process, so it won't make you watch the entire thing. So we did the same thing. We went halfway across, and then we're going to go ahead and glue the remaining tabs. And then we'll go ahead and add the top. Now the only difference with this is not much different. We're going to do the same thing, but you're not going to be able, don't put much pressure if you're sitting like that, have it sit like that. Don't put much pressure on the top because you don't want to buckle these dripping edges. So let's go ahead and do the same thing. Try to get glue as close to the edge as possible. Remember, if it leaks out, just don't put too much, but if it leaks out, we can just wipe it up with the little wet paper towel, just as long as it's not a ton. We don't want it to get on the outside edge, on the fronts. You don't want that shiny glue on the front. I made sure the texture side was up because I'm using textured paper. Gonna match up the edges best I can, get it lined up without putting pressure on these points here. And let's go ahead and flip it over. It may not be perfect, but as long as you get it close. It was a little bit off, but not much. So if you do see glue leak out the side, go ahead and wipe it up because you don't want it to dry on your cardstock, because it will be visible if you drag it over it. So you can see I didn't get all the way to the edge here. It's just a little bit off. So you could ink it if you wanted to. I'm not going to because I want to keep it white. The other thing you can do is you could add an embellishment up here. So like a, if you wanted to go that far, you could do something like pearls or something like that. But I'm more of a minimalist for this particular one. So there's the lid. So let's bring the box back. So the one thing you're going to notice is you have to concentrate to put it on because of the little drips. So once you have it on though, I had to make it a little bit bigger to make it easier to get on and off. So it's kind of loose. It's not, you know, it'll stay upside down, stay on, but who's going to do that, right? So I try to keep the seams there lined up to the side, so you can identify what's the front. So I just like the rainbow colors. So the other thing, so I talked about putting the happy birthday. So if you have it all lined up, if you do something like Make-A-Wish, granted I'm not going to do that because of the color. I didn't intend to do it, but you're going to want to offset that K a little bit from that little right there. You can just pull it down a little bit if you want to do that. Or I had to make it a certain size so it would cut out okay. So you could do a happy birthday like that. So I know that we're not going to do that because of the color. So we're going to do something a little bit different with it. We're actually going to start on the putting on this candles. So you want to have this lined up right here. Before you put it on, just make sure you know where these edges are. So you can do like I did, which is if you're going to put it on, you're going to want to have this facing the front. Let's see if I can show you. I know I'm not in a very good angle for this. And then on the sides, you'll want to put this on. You put one leaning to the left. If you want to have it lean in, you can too, but I think leaning out is what I intended. So, but you want to make sure they're facing towards the front, that flame right here is facing toward the front and back of the box. So let's just say you're just going to see it from the top. They're not going to stay. Let's go like that. Let's just say once there, it won't stand up by itself without being glued very well. So let's say it's like that before I glue them on. You could theoretically take this I'm just going to take this. Normally I wouldn't do this. You could do this in the software too, but if you do cut it out and you're like, if you didn't make it white, because by default it is the same color as, actually it's black. So it's whatever color you choose to make it. Let's say I did this. I'm just cleaning it up a little bit. So I just separated the happy and the birthday. So remember, you can do things like this. You know, you don't have to do everything in a die cutting software. And so I'm just cleaning up the little thing next to the B. Let's say you want to do that. Happy birthday. Or you could, I know you can't really see it well right there. You can offset and put the candles further back and put happy birthday there. Or you could put anything you want, but if you wanted to use these words, you could use that. So that's just an option. So let's go ahead and attach these. So one thing I want to make sure you understand is that this may be hard to attach to this. Actually, it is a little bit difficult, but it's going to be easier if you keep the lid on. And if you have any texture on this, you might need to use a glue gun or something like that. In fact, if you want to use a glue gun, it will be the quickest way to do this. But I'm going to do the middle one. And you have to hold it for quite a while. And I'm going to actually do it in real time so you can see how long. So I want to make sure I know where the front is. Front's like there. I just have my thumb here so I know. I'm going to put it somewhat in the middle. The other thing on the top of the cake, you could add like people's names too. Just use your die cutting software. So if you only want to use one candle, you can always just use that one. So what I'm doing is holding pressure once I got it in place. And again, I made sure that the candle, the actual wick top of the candle was facing towards the front as well. That was the important thing. But you do want to hold it for some time. And then I'm just going to pull it down here. I have a little glue on my fingertip here. If I wanted to apply a little bit more pressure, I could pull it and do that and then hold it underneath. But it's not, this part takes a little patience just to hold it. So now we're going to add the slanted candles. So one will slant that way. So let me show you from the side here, because it's the way I'm filming from the top. So you can put them anywhere you want. I'm going to kind of pull these up. The very first one I kind of put them in the line. And you could do as many candles as you want. So if you want to do as many as would fit, that would be fun to do more. Or if you just want one for a first birthday party, or there's also another file called the Topsy-Turvy cake that comes with single numbers and some like milestone numbers. So you could always use that if you have that file too. But anyways, we're going to put them on. You can put them on any way you want, but I'm going to have them lean towards the right and left. So I'm putting some glue on the bottom there. And again, I'm going to have to hold it. I'm just making sure that it's situated. So this one I'm kind of pulling up. And remember, you're going to have to hold it a fairly long time. You'll probably notice that I have no stickles, or if you do notice on this one, I had to refilm this particular, I put the top on wrong, so I did some creative editing, so you didn't, you may have noticed, but you may not notice, but that sometimes happens. I'm not paying attention while I'm doing something, and I forget that there's an important note that I have to talk about, and that was just I put this top part on wrong on this one. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and then I'll be back to show you what it looks like. So I'm back, and this is what it looks like. So now that I put all three of them, I had to hold them for a little bit. And then I'm going to go ahead and I put glue on the bottom of this already. Make sure there's no glue on my fingertips. I'm going to just center it. So I'm just standing up to look over it. I'm just going to just eyeball. I'm just getting a good front here. And I didn't put glue that close to the edge so I could actually move it a little bit, because we just want it to stick. I just hit the camera with my head, believe it or not. And then I'm just going to hold it down. So you can see I kind of went from the top. You can kind of see I have a space back here, so you could put something back there, or you could fill it in with more candles. You could put like a little sticker here or a die cut, whatever you want to do. But that finishes the project. And let me show you from the side now that I have this bottom glued on. Just hold it in place. So there it is, kind of fun, whimsical birthday cake. Let me show you the pink one again. And that's with the Make-A-Wish on it. Didn't really center that Make-A-Wish, but sometimes things just don't come out perfectly. So I hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, please give me a little thumbs up. This is my favorite one still, just because I like rainbows. If you haven't subscribed, if you subscribe and hit the little notification button, you'll be notified when we have new projects and or tutorials, because I do have a tutorial too somewhere on my site. And I thank you so much for watching.